Hey everyone, so we are live. Thank you for joining me today. I have the wonderful Molly Roberts, Kayleigh Maddox, and Joanna DeVoe. And we're going to get right into just jumping in the conversation today. And so I'm going to ask Molly Roberts, I had a question for you. Um, do you go through any ritual or magical preparation before you jump and be awesome on stage? Make sure you unmute your
Can you
mic.
hear me, honey? Yes, okay, wonderful. I do, I absolutely do. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see me right now, but I'm just going to keep talking to let it go, okay? But I absolutely do, and it's different depending on the event, but I usually do. I do anoint. I have a beautiful oil that was created for me by Joey Morris of Starry-Eyed Supplies that I've been using for, actually I'm planning to use it for the entire year for 365 days of performances devoted to Goddess, so I do. I also have, I'll use visualizations before I go out on stage, again, depending on what the particular event is. And I also have some preparations, usually the night before, and I also make preparations to the things that I plan to wear. There are some things that I wear on stage every time we play, no matter what it is. So, yes, there's some magical preparation for showtime.
That's awesome. I don't know if anybody else has a question for Molly about her either her art that's just like everywhere behind her or something about her being in performance.
Oh, here we go. Can you hear me?
I
Hello.
can, yay.
Hi, yes.
Hello.
Hello. I know you do art magic and vision boards and things of that nature, like, and you teach people how to rock that in a magical way, and I think that's awesome. And
Thank you.
I'm wondering how long you've been doing that for, and when you first realized that you could get some serious results in magic and manifestation from using art.
Accidentally as a child. Um, I've always been a maker. Can you guys hear me? Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to be sure. I can't see anything, so I'm flying a little blind. Okay. But accidentally, honestly, as a little girl, we were always makers. That was something that we did sort of as a family. And I used to create pictures of the things I wanted to be and the things I wanted to do. And it just became part of, inadvertently, about goal setting. And it wasn't until I really started getting interested in magic, the way we're talking about it right now, probably about 15 years ago, that it became conscious that I was doing it on purpose. So I feel like it's instinctual. We paint on caves, you know. It's instinctual.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. I love that. I have a really similar experience too. I started as a child, and I think there was a stage between adolescence and my late 20s where I forgot that I did my most effective magic and my most organic magic in childhood. You have to come back to
Right?
that and go, oh yeah, hang on, I don't need to take myself seriously and do all this mad ceremonial shizzle to feel like I'm adulting. I can just do what I did as a kid because it was really, really effective. You know?
And have you ever looked back at any of those things, sort of as artifacts, and looked at them and realized sort of how potent they were, even now at the time, without all of the background knowledge and the research and all of that? But just like recently, I've been able to find some little bits of spell remnants and things from childhood that where it's really interesting to see where it's taken you.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's that thing that I always say to people about how I think it's weird that people give children religious instruction because actually we should
Hmm.
be paying attention to children to learn about divinity because they know much more about it than we do. And so when I look at like my past stuff, my relics and stuff, I'm learning from my wiser and more potently divine self. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, you did have the answers. You knew better,
You
six-year-old me.
did.
Hmm.
That's awesome. So I actually have a question for you, Kellyanne, because since you do talk about having that documentation of your relics, you have a huge collection of your diaries and journals, and they're really your first book of shadows, but the artwork in it is like crazy. It's crazy. The collage work, the writing, the way you design your poems. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that kind of entails.
It is crazy. You're right. Yeah, I do look at it sometimes and go, "You's crazy, baby." No, it is crazy. I think I've always been visual and I've always been a writer. I used to pretend to write before I actually knew the alphabet. I used to mimic like adults writing. So for me, it's always been a case of that it's cathartic, even if I don't know what to write or I don't quite know what I want to express. If I just start writing anything, it's likely to be cathartic, it's likely to be therapeutic for me, and I'm likely to get something out of it. So for me, moving on from that into creating books that like collected all my thoughts and feelings and stuff together, that was just completely natural, and I was doing that from really early. I had tons of books before I turned 14, 15 that I chucked away. There were so many that over time I was like, okay, you know, I can't keep everything back from when I was like 10 and 11. This is getting silly. But yeah, I've always kept books, and so for me, magical record keeping is organic. Actually, I'm going to do a witchy Q&A soon, and somebody did ask me, I think on Instagram, to talk about whether or not it's essential to do magical record keeping, because so many witches are so like, you need to be keeping a record, you need to be keeping a book, and not just copying things out of Cunningham's books, but actually writing your own observations. And I think a lot of people find that slightly like troubling or daunting or overwhelming because it's never really come naturally to them. So it's kind of like the biggest chore in the magical journey. Whereas for me, it's like if I had to go 48 hours without sort of visually or, you know, epistolary kind of documenting something, I'd start to twitch out. So for me, I think it's just a part of my nature. I don't know if that answers the question. Like I explained, Eric, I had a lot of vodka last night, but I'm trying my best, babe, okay? That's all I can do.
That's perfect. Joanna, do you keep any of your magical things? I know you're a collector of the written language.
Do I keep any of my magical things?
Like your diaries or journals from like a while?
Oh my God, yes. Oh yes. I got rid of, when I moved in with my husband, I had so thoroughly documented what people might call the dark night of the soul. And he kept coming into my space when he was just my boyfriend at the time, and I'd be gone all day. I worked at Warner Brothers, and he'd go to my apartment to play guitar, and I just became paranoid because I didn't want anybody going through it. It was so raw and deeply personal and dark. I started thinking, like, what if I die and my mother finds this, or my son gets older, and because there were personal things that might hurt people's feelings and things like that. So I did get rid of a big batch, and sometimes I regret it, and sometimes I'm relieved. But I document everything. I've always been a writer/reader, and I'm also a hoarder. I can't see it, but I'm a hoarder of magical things. I have a really hard time getting rid of them. I've been doing space clearing for a while, and if you came to my house, probably the first thought you would have is, she needs to do some space clearing. I don't know. I like my stuff. It's like my cocoon, and I love magic, so this is my latest. I think Molly got the same one, but I also am sort of like a cluttery person visually. I like to like wear all of my magical things. So all of the kind of mundane jewelry that I have, even fancy diamonds and things like that, really taken a back seat to crystals. And this is Maggie Elram, I believe, Witch and Moon, if anybody wants to go shopping. Because every witch needs more witchy stuff. Like, we don't have enough. But anyway, that's my latest bling that I'm grooving on.
That's funny. So when I go over to your house one day, I'm just going to be like with a box and some trash bags. Like,
yes, I think it will bother you. There are certain people it really, really bothers. And my big thing is stacks of paper. So it's really annoying to people that live with me because there's just like a bunch of random stacks of paper here and there, and if you try to touch them, I will freak out on you. Like, don't touch it! Ah! It doesn't look like it's in order, but I know what's going on. It's like organized chaos, kind of. So I totally relate to what Kellyanne was saying.
Well, I wish I kept a lot of the stuff I wrote. I was a very kind of dark, depressed kind of child growing up. I kind of felt like Winona Ryder's character in Beetlejuice. Like, everything I wrote was like, I am alone, I'm dark. Like, it was so depressing. And so I didn't feel like I needed that, but sometimes I wish I kept it so I could kind of, I mean, even though there were like my personal experiences, with being bullied and growing up gay and coming out of so many different closets, I kind of wish I kept that as just a, like Kellyanne said, like a relic. And so I thought, yeah, I threw it all away.
I've been thinking a lot about that because I've publicly told people, I just got rid of like 300 books, and I have probably 3 times that still in my house. And I was talking about how I've read so many books because I have such a history with depression and anxiety, and then in addition to, I had no money for many, many years, and this small child I was supposed to take care of. So a lot of my time was just alone and reading. And I started thinking about, well, do I want that stuff around me now because of the state I was in when I was accumulating? I don't know. I'm starting to question if I need to be surrounded by all this shit. So the wheels are starting to turn on that. I don't know how it will turn out, but there's a conversation going in my head about it now.
Well, whenever you're ready, I'll come over and help you clean.
You don't see my dark side. Like, don't touch that! So,
Molly, yeah. I wanted to ask you, thank you, Joanna. I wanted to ask you about, well, congratulations on recently getting married. That's really exciting. Is your husband into spiritual practice, or he's kind of just like, I just want to be with my bass guitar, you can do your own thing?
Well, while my honey does not consider himself to be a practitioner, no, he's not involved necessarily in my practice, but he's very supportive of my practice. And I think that's part of what's made us work. We've been together for almost 15 years. And while I do need my own space, obviously, to work and do ritual, we do things for Sabbats. Like we will go on hikes together. We'll make special dinner together. So he participates as a supporter. But I also think it's interesting. A lot of people ask me about that, like what's it like to have a non-spiritual partner? And not to get super woo-woo, but like how do you define, a non-spiritual person, just because their practice doesn't look like yours, or maybe they're very private. He is an artist as well, so I think it's actually impossible for him to not also be a spiritual being. And I think a big part of our relationship and what was sort of special about getting married was this is going to sound a little silly, but this realization that your partner is also a magical creature, whether or not they are, identify as a practicing witch, and that when you combine powers and you combine your energies and your interests in the same living space and kind of leveling up on your relationship, that was a really cool, alchemical, super spiritual moment for both of us.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, Erick, my fiance, we've been together for almost 11 years. We're complete opposites when it comes to spiritual practice. And I don't know if I would be able to survive with someone else that is either similar to me. And I think that polar opposites actually work. Like I almost feel like I have something for myself. I feel something where I could go into and just dive into and be private because it's like mine.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It's intensely intimate and personal. And and that's something that we have had to come to terms with in our relationship. That there are going to be some things that are my business, just like there are going to be some things that are his business. And if either of us have questions about it, we'll talk about it. But I'm forever solitary, I believe. I love this is incredible to have the opportunity to talk to other witches and other magically minded people, but I am terminally solitary. And some of that deeply sacred stuff is for you and you alone, even though you might be really tempted to share it. It's a lot of that is really information, and it probably wouldn't make sense to a lot of other people, if you were to divulge that. But you're right, it's intensely intimate.
Joanna, I saw you kind of doing some hand signals. Go ahead.
Yes. Actually, it's a question for the group, and then I'll shut up. But I've been thinking a lot about her saying she's solitary. I feel like there is an online coven situation happening here, even if we're not, some of us are doing rituals together online, but the discussion, I used to think of myself as a solitary witch, but now, I mean, I'm able to talk about all of this with a really great group of people, and I feel like the definition of a solitary witch is starting to morph and change for like the cyber witches or whatever. So I was just curious what the rest of you thought about that.
Kelly, do you want to go ahead and take that first?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm interested in like techno shamanism and like, you know, I think of the internet as an egregore, as its own like cosmos. I've done magic in cyberspace, if you will, and I've definitely gone surfing in all kinds of mad situations to do some kind of cyber bibliomancy. Like, okay, whatever I land on, that tells me the answer that I need. Like, I'm just going to put some random shit in and go to page 15 of Google and then scroll down to the last bit, and that is everything I need to know right now. Like, let's do it. That kind of thing. And so I think that the internet is a very magical place. I think a lot of weird shit goes down on the internet, and obviously not all of it good, but there is something so potent about it. It's a crazy, crazy playground. And so I think it's a good place for people to hook up and have conversations and stuff, because the energy of it is just so like ethereal, and I was going to say high vibe, but like I said, there is a seedy underbelly to it as well, but I kind of find that also quite cool. But yeah, like I do think it's a place where people meet, and it's a place where location doesn't matter. It's definitely blown a lot of holes in a lot of things that we used to have to do, like only speak to the people around us, or only be in a coven with people near us, or whatever. Like, the internet has given us so much freedom. It seems like the perfect positive place to actually connect together in that bigger way. And I do know that there are covens online that do things like they plan a ritual to all do separately, but they connect to, you know, the hive mind. So they'll all be doing it in their own places. One person will be doing it in like America, and another person will be doing it in Australia. But it's like a group meditation with people from all over the world. Like, you connect to the joint intention, and the joint intention fuels everything. Like what happens when you get distance Reiki. So yeah, that definitely happens. And also, what's interesting is that you mentioned, Joanna, that you although people aren't always doing ritual or magic together, the conversations that are going on between people are off the hook, and a lot of people are having those conversations with regularity. And I actually think that that is a big part of what being in a coven is. I think people could be in a coven and not do necessarily any magic or even any ritual, but just shoot the shit in order to expand each other's consciousness and each other's sense of what's possible. How is that not coven behavior? It totally is coven behavior, you know?
Totally. I agree. I've learned so much from so many witches. I've been able to share what I know. It's changed my mind. And it makes me think of back in the day, like, witches would, you know, they'd use the flying ointment. Some of us still do. But to, like, you know, escape the village, their families, to go gather in the forest, supposedly. High, and supposedly I'm like, well, we're not really getting high, we're just logging in. But I have done rituals online, and I think it's awesome. There's even ones where you like pretend like you're holding hands, you know, you imagine that you're all holding hands and then sending energy from hand to hand, and you can feel it. There's a physical sensation that happens when everybody is concentrated and holding space that way. So I'd be curious what the other guys think too, and gals.
Molly, do you want to go first?
I would like to echo some of those sentiments that both Kelly and Joanna had. To tie into this, to be honest, I was so incredibly psyched when you invited us to have this opportunity to chit-chat, not only because all of you guys I'm having kind of a fangirl panic attack, but that I never thought that this would, the internet community, however you want to use the term community, would ever really be sort of a deep emotionally charged part of my life, much less part of my sacred practice. The amount, not only of just information, the amount of knowledge that's out there, but really I think a lot of people want to be a part of a coven, not because they're necessarily looking just for people to, commit magical acts with, but to feel a sense of community and a sense of understanding and acceptance. And I really never thought, truthfully deep down, that would really be a possibility for me because of where I happen to live. But much less, through the ethers of the internet, have these really strong emotional bonds with people and have these great experiences and discussions. And they have changed my life, not in a hyperbolic way, but in a real concrete way. And I think it's really amazing. So yeah, I do have to agree with you, Joanna, with that sentiment that I think there's really more coven activity going on than we realize on the surface.
I think that's awesome, and I'll actually piggyback off you, Molly, when you said that the bonds you create online. Sometimes I feel like my bonds that I create online, I'll never probably will meet this person, but it is a lot stronger than the ones I have in the physical, like people that I have, like being solitary for a really long time, and most of it was my decision. I like just being myself. I didn't want someone to challenge my beliefs, but at the same time, I felt that pull to ask questions and figure other people's practice, but kind of see what works for them. And I think when I started to do my my YouTube channel, it was mostly at the beginning for me to just be almost like an open book of shadows for me, where I'm able to document, because I didn't feel like writing stuff down. I just wanted to like blur it out, and if someone watches, someone watched. But from that experience came that community, and like Joanna said, it was like these little covens. It's almost like Facebook. Like you wake up and you're like joined into like 5 different groups. Well, it's kind of like that. Like all of a sudden I'm like in someone's favorite witchy playlist of people, and that is like a kind of like a coven in itself, because these people get certain information from people, and it's almost like having like a huge tribe of people that everyone has a specific role and plays their part, and they're very important for someone's development. That's why I get so nervous when I'm putting stuff out there, because I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm being authentic, because I don't want to put out something that's crap, if that makes sense. And so I did want to ask you guys, I'll ask another question, and whoever jumps first. Since I'm talking about the online, starting the YouTube channel, I know Molly touched about it a little bit. Has your practice changed from that at all, from being kind of exposed and vulnerable in that kind of space? Whoever wants to take it first.
It's changed my whole life. It's changed everything. Partly because I started on YouTube right after I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, so it's really like tracing a healing for me. But I've made amazing friends. My 2 best friends I've met through doing this, and so many other people that I'm becoming closer and closer to. You moved to LA, and I knew we would be friends because of, I don't know, just a connection we had. I was like, we're going to have some fun, and I was right. But my spiritual practice, it's because what you were saying about people being able to challenge you, it makes you think, it changes your mind. You want to try out some spells somebody was talking about that you maybe never. Molly creates a lot of things out of thin air. Like, she just makes shit up, and you're like, well, I want to try that too. So, there's people that like challenge you or give you new ideas, and it starts shaping your practice. And I remember when Anna K. Garrett was talking about being a pantheist, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a pantheist? I didn't know there was a word for it. There's like little moments like that. I had done a spell on my old channel called the Hubba Bubba spell, where I blew, it involves chewing gum if you want to go back and find it. But I do a lot of like weird made up things like that. So when Kellyanne was talking about chaos magic, I was like, well, I do that shit all the time. Like, you know, it starts giving you a vocabulary that you might not have had before. And so everything has changed. It's also improved my confidence a lot. So there's that.
Hello. I definitely think it's changed everything. It has. One thing that you can do when you're just on your own and you're just doing your own thing for ages is you can cease to really question your beliefs anymore, or update them, or reassess them, or check in with them, or think about what you think about them. You know, you can get set in your way and just be like, well, this is what I think and this is it. But when you actually have to divulge it to other people, teach it to other people, explain it to other people, break it down, which is very much what my channel is largely for, then you do have to check in with it. You do. And I always say to my shadow work clients, when I teach shadow work, I'm doing shadow work. And it's the same when I'm teaching about anything, when I'm explaining something or trying to break it down for someone, I'm also going through the motions. And I have updated my views on quite a few things since doing that, not only because other people can come along and challenge you and tell you, like, I see things a different way, or can you explain how you came to that conclusion? And you're there like, I fucking can't, I have to take a few days of that. Hang on, I'll be right back. Let me just think about why I do think that. So that's one thing. But another thing is just as you evolve, it's really important to check in with what you believe and mix things up and do different stuff. And YouTube has inspired me to do that, because just by listening to myself talking about it, I'm like, I believe that? Do I? Oh, I never did. Or, you know, it surprised me. And definitely I'm influenced by other people, for sure. Like, I think there are various different people on YouTube. Katie Flowers is definitely one of them, and there are others that I could name who gave me permission to have a largely more goddess-centered practice. And that has that's taken its own journey. And that, yeah, there's people that have definitely given me permission in their own ways, just by talking about their own stuff, for me to think, that's something I want. Why have I always told myself I can't have that? Like, you know, fuck the haters, I'm going to have that. I'm going to ride that tricycle and eat that ice cream and have my hair pink. I don't care. Like, it's good. It's definitely done that. And in many other ways it has as well. Like, I just sent some replies yesterday to people that have sent stuff to my PO box. And honest to God, I used to write letters and send packages all the time when I was younger, all the time. And even into my early 20s, I had a couple of friends, like male friends particularly, who were in my life, who used to get a great deal out of writing to me, and we would write back and forth to each other. And then that all dried up, and opening the PO box has literally changed everything. Like, oh my God, I was literally sitting around, I felt like a teenager again, sitting around like pouring sequins into envelopes, like, here's a soda light for you, love you forever. It's like, oh my God, I'm 12 again. It's just lovely. So that's definitely been a change that's lovely.
Molly, that was amazing, I have to say. That was so much fun. Molly, do you have anything to say about how your expression in your YouTube space changed you in your practice?
Well, I'm going to try not to be too repetitive, but I would echo both Joanna's and Kelly's sentiments about how it really gives you permission to expand. It gives you permission to change your mind. Even my YouTube life has been very short in comparison to what you've all been able to log away and accomplish. But even just in that short time, having the diaristic element, seeing what did I think about this in this particular phase in my life, in this particular season. So having it be a tool that way in a diaristic sense has been incredibly helpful, but then also being able to absorb interesting ideas and try things on. It gives you permission to try things on, even if you're really challenged by them. And that's actually when I think you come across something interesting that really challenges you. I would never do that. I don't want to do that. And then you sit and think about it for a couple of days and you're like, I'm totally going to do that. And give it a shot and experiment. And I think the other thing that's been interesting to me is not only, I mean, everybody is aware of the YouTube community's capacity for nastiness, but there is an overwhelming kindness there. People want so badly to connect and be seen and feel like somebody sees them and hears them. And that I never, ever anticipated. I started my YouTube channel mostly to try to break out of a feeling of isolation. I never really anticipated that my channel would become a teaching tool in any capacity, to be perfectly honest. It was diaristic, and I was hoping to maybe get a pen pal out of it. So in some regards, I feel like I'm kind of a reluctant teacher in that way, because to be truthful, such a large portion of my practice is about experimenting that I'm never sure about anything. Depends on the day of the week, But I think people are looking for ways to express kindness. They're looking for outlets to express kindness, and I think YouTube is such an interesting avenue for that.
Oh, Molly, that was beautiful. I love it. I agree. I am very thankful that I haven't seen the worst of like trolls and stuff like that, because I think just the volume of people being very compassionate, supported, and loving is like overwhelming sometimes. And I think I think Joanna asked like a question of what are you grateful for? What was a really kick-ass thing you did that week? And I wrote replying to some really awesome comments, and that just like made my day. It like I even copied some in a journal while I was trying to manifest things, just to give me permission that I am able, that I do have value and worth to stuff, and it's that nice. So that going back to that center of community, that coven, you have this like awesome support out there, and there is that whole thing where people really do want to be a part of something really magical, and I think this allows us to do that. So thank you, ladies, for that. I love that. I did want to mention, or actually talk to you guys about pop culture, because each one of you has a very unique way of introducing pop culture into your spiritual practice and making something out of it. So I'll let you know what I do. I'm a huge nerd, like a game nerd, comic book, superheroes. To me, that is like my pop culture. When I draw goddesses or do I draw anything magical, I do them in superhero form. And I was listening to Joanna DeVoe, I think she mentioned either on her podcast or on her channel, how superheroes is the modern day mythology. And I absolutely agree, because I connect with that now. They're almost like, Green Lantern is the Olympians, they're the Greek goddesses in that genre. X-Men for me is also like, Aphrodite, Aesir, and a bunch of different things. So for me, I like introducing that into my practice, and I'll even found like a picture of Mystique from X-Men, and I had her in my altar a little bit because I loved how she reminded me of Hecate at the time, with her red hair and her white dress with the skull and the blue skin. It could even be Kali. So inviting that into your practice, how do you guys feel about that? And I'll go with Molly for this one.
There we go. So this is something that I'm very interested in and passionate about. For me, the integration of pop imagery is very natural. It wasn't something that I set out with the intention of doing, and was really excited to find out that other people were doing it when I finally started getting into Phil Hine and things like that, much later after I'd already been doing it. Like, fuck yeah, there's a name for this. That's so cool. But I think it had a lot to do with my art school training, and for me there isn't much of a delineation between the art making, the music making, and the magical practice. I use a lot of the same tactics for all of them, and they're usually all intertwined in some way, like I'm coming up with ideas for songs in the circle, or exploring ideas that I found in the circle on stage and things of that nature. But in art school, you're kind of hammered in, they hammer this idea into you that you cannot just present something as it is. At some level, everything needs to be coded. So if I want to talk about the goddess, I can't, I can't just make you a painting of the Venus of Willendorf and say, this is a painting about the goddess. It has to be about my feelings of the goddess. How does the culture reflect on this idea of the goddess? It could be anything. That's just an example. So for me, the idea of coding images of goddess or the divine using mundane, funny, commercial things felt like sort of a natural solution, especially when I started doing this when I was younger, and I didn't know how thrilled my parents were going to be about obviously like flagrant pagan imagery. But my collection of Wonder Woman figurines and Sailor Moon figurines and things like that, those are very safe. And it's sort of a secret language for you. And I think in some ways it can actually be more impactful if it feels like it belongs to you in some sort of secret way. But I love to integrate it. It feels natural. I love doing it. And I've been having a blast hearing from people who are experimenting with this idea, and the success that they're having with it is wonderful.
That's awesome. I'm going to jump in real quick because I know you shared something with me very passionately, and it's Tank Girl.
Oh,
and
yes.
I grew up with Tank Girl, and I've always looked at her as a kick-ass, feminist, power, just everything. I always wanted to aspire to be here, even though she's crazy in her world. So I just wanted to hear you, because I never got a chance to ask you about how you use Tank Girl in your practice.
Oh, I use Tank Girl as a totem. I used her when I was just starting to get out and get on stage, because in my very real private life, I have a lot of anxiety. And I've talked about that. I've tried to share that in other videos where, things, simple kind of mundane things like taking public transportation prove to be incredibly challenging. Or I'm also the person who doesn't want to ask my waitress for an extra napkin because I'm pretty sure I'm bothering her and she's going to hate me. So using Tank Girl as a totem kind of gave me permission to be manic and be insane and do what I thought and give no fucks and go for it. And I do use her that way. There's something, you can use a visualization and imagine yourself. Yeah, you're coming out, you're in on your tank, guns are blazing, we're going, no fucks are given, and everybody's going to have a really good time. And you could really do that with any character. And I think what's interesting, people have written to me about this idea saying, well, I think that's pretty weird that you worship a cartoon character. And I'd like to clarify that. It's not about worship. It's about using the ideas around and integrating the characteristics of a character. So I just wanted to take a second to clarify that. Yeah.
Who wants to jump in?
Yeah, it's not about any individual character. It's the archetype, and the archetype has many, many faces. Like Carl Jung said, we meet ourselves over and over again in different disguises on the path of life. And really, Tank Girl is an archetype. There are lots of different ways to portray that archetype and to try and embody it. And Tank Girl is specific to one place in the world, one culture, one time. And it's whether or not that is a portal into the depths of the meaning of the archetype for you. If it is, then you need to use it. And this is why I always say to people, like, if you read the Greek myths and you think, man, that's some cool stories, but then you watch Star Trek and you're fucking weeping your heart out and thinking about how the whole thing is just like a metaphor for your beliefs and your life, then why would you not use Star Trek as your pantheon? Like, because it's about what works. And Molly said earlier that Molly mentioned that she's a reluctant teacher because she, she's never really sure about anything and she's just experimenting. But what she teaches is that it is okay to do that. And actually that is what I am teaching people most of the time. I am not teaching people to use my way. I am teaching people that it is perfectly fucking okay to say, I don't really dig the Greek myths, but Battlestar Galactica really switches me into something. So excuse me if I just, choose Gaius as my personal Dionysus. Like, that is okay. That's absolutely fine. I would take Starbuck, but that's just the bisexual side of me. But, those things are, it's important to, that it's about connecting to that. And it's not, when people say, well, it's weird to worship a cartoon character, first of all, you're right, worship isn't the right word. It's about connecting to the spark of divinity within you. Like, when I look at my matron deity, I see me. for all kinds of different reasons. It totally makes sense. Like, her father is an emotionally redundant mental case. Her siblings are crazy, same as me, same family setup as me, and she's half light, half shadow. She's a contradiction. She's a walking paradox, and she's about her work, and she's married to her work. She doesn't have kids, and she's not married, same as me. Don't want to, don't need to, nah, not having that. So that she's really just a mirror image of me, and that's what the archetype does. And however you can connect to it, whether it's Tank Girl or whether it's like the Gorgon Medusa, whatever it is that makes you go, oh, there's that spark of the thing within me that goes down into the roots of civilization, that's what you'll use. And it's just about what is the most effective for you.
Joanna?
Yes. I did a show on this a long time ago on Hippie Witch about creating your own pop pantheon, and I'm so relieved to have voices like Kellyanne and Molly talking about this stuff and making it accessible, because when I first started on YouTube, it was all about the gods and the goddesses, and I just felt like a weirdo, kind of like a sore thumb. You know, I was really into the law of attraction, and I don't worship anything, and I don't really work with gods and goddesses. I have a couple that I connect with, but my pantheon is like Tess McGill, a character from a movie in the 80s called Working Girl. And like, I work with Tess McGill all the time. It's more of what would Tess do in this situation. Or I've been working with just the Queen this year, just the Queen. And what would a queen do? I work with Jack White a lot. Sometimes the people are dead, sometimes they're still alive, and sometimes it's not a person. Sometimes it's a thing. Like Grease, the Pink Ladies, they wore jackets. And it was like their superhero cape in a way. Like, I made my friends in elementary school like get matching jackets. And we started a club and we're wearing our matching jackets, and it changed. I remember it changed how I felt about myself. I was a nerd, like a nerd, so nerdy, the worst. But I put on that jacket, and all of a sudden I was like king bitch at the school. I just felt like, I don't know, there was something empowering about it. So for me, I think too, it's I've talked a little bit about I came up through method acting long before magic, and I will talk about this later in my own space. But we did a lot of things like animal exercises, where you work with an animal and you study the animal, and then you start moving like the animal to yourself, start embodying that energy. So that's what makes sense to me. Whether you're working with an ancient Greek pantheon or you're working with Tank Girl, in my opinion, it's just about personal empowerment and trying things on that give you that little bit of whatever you need in the moment. That's why you have a pantheon, because you might work with Tank Girl when you need to feel like a badass, but then you might work with Mother Teresa when you need more compassion going into a situation. And then they can just run the gamut. It could be this Greek goddess, this cartoon character, this dead movie star, and just, I'm into eclecticism that way, and I really like this group because I feel like I'm in good company with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, like, it's funny because I used to watch a lot of Marilyn Monroe or that kind of movie because I wanted to feel a little bit more in my curves, I guess, if you want to say. I want to feel a little bit more sexy, so I would watch something like that, and then when I go out, I just felt like I moved a little bit more loosely and sexy, and so it's funny. Yeah, I definitely agree. So I wanted to open up the discussion to if any of you have any questions that you want to ask either one of us. I don't know if anybody has anything. Go ahead and ask away.
Okay, Eric, I'm interested in your relationship with the Morrigan, because I know that you did 30 days with the Morrigan, and at that time I was making something, and it was really intense, so I didn't get to see like all of the stuff, and I've still got it all on my watch later list. But lately, right, I've really been I'm very interested in Children of the Morrigan. I'm interested in her. She's not cool to me or anything, but I'm quite fascinated by the way that people speak about the Morrigan is markedly different to how a lot of other goddesses are spoken about. It's like very interesting to me, and I'm just wondering how long you've been working with her for and what you feel she's personally given to you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's an awesome question, and I refuse to answer it. No, I'm joking. um, I've been working. So October of last year was the first time I felt really strongly. Well, September of last year, I felt really strongly guided to work with her for some reason. And I've always worked with Death Goddess for some reason too. So I'm either always rebirthing and releasing, and it's just for some reason it worked. And the moment I felt called to work with the Goddess Morgan, it felt like it was my primal instinct just kicked in, like that inner warrior. And so at first, I mean, I always resonate with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman for me represents that warrior goddess and that kind of take back control of your own life. And what's funny is that the people that I've talked to that are also working with that Goddess Morgan energy have come from a very traumatic childhood or have come from a very similar experience that they need to reclaim their worth and their strength. And what better way to do that than to tap into a goddess that just fucking rocks. And for me during that time in Halloween was a lot about releasing. It was me grieving, the loss of my brother and my dad. And so I needed something to hold the sacred space for me. And when that energy came in, it felt great. And I felt like I was being protected in a way that I'd never experienced before. And the reason I wanted to do the 31-day challenge was because I needed to make sure that it was going to work. And at the end of it, it was we either connected or we didn't. And so we just tend to connect. And so everyone's experience with the Goddess Morgans is different. I never like anybody that puts in like that. This is how it is, and this is how she only comes to you. Like I've always been like, it comes to you in different ways, in different forms, depending on your personal need and what you need at that time. So for me, it's just all about of me tapping into the warrior energy and sovereignty of my own. And so that's why I resonated immediately when Joanna talked about dedicating the year to the Queen. And I said, yes, I'm on board. I'm going to dedicate this year to the year of the King for me because I needed to feel more regal. But at the same time, I was looking for that space for me to claim my strength and my courage that I can do what I want to do. But the interesting with the King energy and the Queen energy is that you also learn compassion and use your posture and body language. And Joanna's doing all this great stuff about the body of a witch, and I absolutely agree because working with the Goddess Morgan and then that King energy, it fits because I feel like I'm representing myself 24/7, and it's like I'm ruling my kingdom. And what does that look like? What kind of leader do I want to become in my life? And especially if I'm on YouTube, how am I not necessarily thinking about how I'm representing, but am I representing the best version of myself all the time? I don't know if that answers your question. So I mean, the answers are different for anyone, but for me, it was more of I needed to feel like I could take the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally does make sense, and it doesn't surprise me that you brought that up and that you've connected that to the Year of the Queen, which I am also totally into. I'm just about to start a massive Queen Elizabeth I biopic that I've been meaning to read for ages, and literally, like, it is the Year of the Queen for me. I'm like, right, I'm going to read about all them bitches. I'm really excited. But, like, I also wanted to ask Joanna and Molly a question as well about the goddess, because I know that Molly, I've watched a video from Molly where she said that she has struggled with the fact that she doesn't have a matron deity, and she's been open about that, and I thought that was a really meaningful video, because I think a lot of people struggle with that kind of thing, and I think it's important that more witches that seem very confident and very kick-ass and very like chaos-like can be straight up and say, I'm sad, I've tried, I can't, you know what I mean? I thought that was really cool. And also I know that Joanna does not have a matron deity, but hasn't expressed those concerns that I'm aware of. And I was just wondering how Molly's doing with not having one, and if Joanna had to have one, which one would she have and why? Oh, either one first. I don't mind.
There we go.
Oh,
Okay,
go, Molly. I really wanted to hear your answer, but I didn't see you come online. You go. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That was actually a really, really difficult video for me to make and to put out there. And it's actually the only video that I have up that comments. I just wasn't, like, I wanted to share that story, but I really wasn't ready at that point for somebody to bust in and just say, well, you're just not doing it right and you're just not trying hard enough. I was like, not ready for that, but there's got to be some other people out there who feel this way. And I think, actually, I have been working with one goddess for probably the past 6 months or so. And I feel like that, the goddess Diana, and I feel like that's working out really well for me. I think, I don't know if I'm ready to say that it's a matron situation, but at this point in my life, it feels right. It feels like that's working. I feel like in the past that I was making it harder than it needed to be. You know, I said, well, how can I be a real mystic if I'm not having this experience where my goddess isn't talking to me in the form of a raven flying over my bed and I dream about her all the time? You know, like these things that you're supposed to be feeling and experiencing if you're really magical. And I realized that it was time to probably take some of my own advice in that arena, where people write to me often and ask, you know, I'm struggling with finding a goddess, or I'm struggling with finding an animal totem, and I would just say to them, well, you just pick one. It's okay if you haven't, you know, if the stars didn't all rain down on you and you have this euphoric vision, just like pick one and work with it. And if you don't like it, pick something else. And that's what I ended up doing. And it was a very mundane, actually, sort of experience. And actually, it was one of Kelly's videos in her series that she had done a while ago about around World Goddess Day and about choosing a matron and things of that nature. That it's like, it doesn't need to be like this wild, crazy thing. It just needs to be something that you feel like you can relate to. What would I like to experience more of in my life, and just make an active decision. That, I guess, in the deity arena, like, it's okay, you don't have to be receptive and passive, you can make a choice, I guess, and experiment. So I think that's what I have on that.
I'll just come back to that before I get Joanna's answer. I definitely feel like that video that I made where I explained that I just knew I wanted a death goddess. I knew I wanted to go out there and find a death goddess that had characteristics that would tap me into the highest version of myself. I think videos like that, where you put your own practice on the line, and there's a lot that I won't share and will never share. Like, part of being solitary is being a little closed about what you do, but sharing things like that does give people permission. It does give people permission to feel okay about what's going on in their own journey. And hell never fucking bailed me up. Like, she did not. I was just like, this is a girl that is dedicated to her work, that rules her own kingdom, and doesn't concern herself with a lot of the madness that goes on up in Asgard. She's not interested. She's running her own shit. She doesn't have a man telling her what to do or a man to compromise with. Her children are the people that reside in her kingdom, and her work is her life, and she's very dedicated to it. And at that point in my life, I wanted to be dedicated to my work. I wanted to start taking it more seriously, and I wanted to bring more discipline and commitment into my life, and for a whole host of other reasons that were more to do with, metaphorically, the way she seems to represent light and shadow and Jungian stuff. I was like, yeah, it's her. It's totally her. I feel like I've met her before. It was only like, you know, a year and a half down the line that she said, hey, I'm here. Thanks for belling me up, just getting back to your message. And I was like, oh God, thank you. This is just magic. I wasn't expecting this. Oh my God, I'm not even ready. I'm not dressed or anything. Like, it was just amazing. And since then, she speaks to me in full fucking sentences. But it didn't start that way. You know what I mean? I think it's really cool that it's kind of that people are talking about how it doesn't need to start that way. So thank you so much for your answer. And I would like to know, if Joanna had to work with a classic goddess, which one would it be and why? And also, have you ever minded that you don't have one, or have you ever had one and then sort of split up a bit and thought, she's a bit of a bitch, I'm not interested in her anymore? I mean, what do you think? What's going on with you, Joanna?
First of all, I cannot hear hell without thinking Kellyanne. So in my mind, you kind of are hell, I guess, in a way. You've kind of embodied that for me. So if I come across anything, even H-E-double-L, I don't know, I just am like, Kellyanne. I talk a lot about Athena. I call her Queen of Swords. So if I had to pick someone, it would be Athena. But I'm very bratty about this. I'm very, the intensity of the religiosity and the rules that I grew up in, that I still experience. I cry on my way home many, many, many times because, I mean, I just feel myself welling up trying to mention it. It's extremely oppressive what I come from, and there's so much judgment involved. Why is this getting me shaken up? I don't believe in God, so I don't believe in a goddess. I believe in nature. I believe in energy. So I find myself being drawn, weirdly, I never would have expected this, toward animism, which is really weird to say. But, like, I can connect with my house. Like, she has a name now, and I talk to her, which started with working with Marie Kondo's book that a lot of people work with in recent years. Or I can connect with a tree. Or I can be like, this is the wind. I don't think this is such and such goddess who represents the wind. I'm just like, this is so fucking weird. I'm on this, like, spinning ball in outer space, and this, like, air is, like, picking up my hair and, like, holding it up like this, and, like, I'll just start praying. I don't know what I'm praying to. I've always felt connected to, you would call it God, but I don't believe in personified deity, I guess is what I should say. I see God as this amazing creative mystery. So it took me about 8 years to not think I was going to hell, speaking of hell. It was a long journey of healing and not feeling like I was doing something wrong by rejecting that. So I'm not about to be like picking up someone else's. I don't care if people think that doesn't make me a good witch, if I don't worship the goddess, if I don't even recognize the goddess, because they don't. And I know that people don't like that about me, but I'm used to my own family not liking that about me, so I'm okay with it. It's just, and I don't see that changing. But then again, I never thought I would start, like, thinking about animism, and it's one of those things that I think was always there that I didn't recognize. So, like, I couldn't throw away a stuffed animal, for example, because I knew it was alive, you know, like, I couldn't, you know, like, see a little face, like, poking up from the trash or something. It would drive me crazy. So that's a new thing I'm experimenting, but that's as close as I can get, Kellyanne. I hope that answers your question.
It answers the question perfectly, and I think some of your feelings about it do come from upbringing, because for me, I don't have any baggage like that, and I know a lot of people have struggled so much to untangle their thoughts about personified deity from monotheism and fundamentalist monotheism and forcing ideas into children's heads that just eat them alive from the inside out. And because I don't have that, like, I never really believed that I would be interested in working with personified deity. I had no real I didn't think I'd ever want a matron. It came quite unexpectedly out of nowhere once I recognised that my practice was becoming much more about becoming the highest and most potent version of myself. And I see personified deities as merely representations of archetypes within us that are in their Platonian form, the most potent of that particular characteristic that you can get. So for me, it made sense, but I didn't come to it with the feelings that a lot of people come to it with. So, like, for me, I do not believe in the goddess as the ultimate, like, expression of divinity. I'm a pantheist. I believe everything is an expression of divinity. The coffee table that this computer on is an expression of divinity to me, but I see it as what I choose to highlight. So everything is God to me, but if I put my marker on something and say, let's look at the face of God through this and see what happens there, then it doesn't mean that anything else is any less an expression of the divine. But I think if you've grown up in a certain way where you have had to untrain yourself and allow yourself to have a free spirituality despite the dogma that's gone in between your ear rolls, then it's different for you. It's different for you. That's it. Like, it's never going to be as easy as it was for me. And I have a huge amount of respect for people that have gotten to a point where they're still alive and they can experiment with their own spirituality after having that dogma put on them, because I didn't really have a lot of that to deal with. And so I'm always really appreciative of people that have done the work to actually allow themselves to think of God in a different way. So muchos respetos, or however you say it in the Spanish. Well done. Well done.
No, I definitely agree, and I love that, because for me, I felt like my religious background goes up from being Catholic then to Christian and then to kind of questioning faith, but I almost felt like everything that I got was like in a like a pamphlet package. Like when I found out I was more a gay and I wanted to come out, it's almost like I got something in the mail that says, so you want to be a homosexual, here's some share CDs and here's some stuff, you know. And then the same thing with so you want to be a witch, here's all the stuff you have to do, and here's the things that you have to have. If you don't, then you don't qualify. And it took a long time for me. I think that beginning years of me being a witch was a little bit more damaging for my practice than my Catholic and Christian upbringings, because I felt like I had to do these certain things to be a witch, and there was no in or outs or, you know, around the cookie cutter. So that for me was a little bit more damaging the beginnings than that practice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a starter pack for everything, isn't there? And having the boldness to reject that starter pack is important. You know, like for me, when I first got into witchcraft, I'm 31 now, so it was not a case of like just popping onto the internet, and like it wasn't a thing back then when I was like 13 and 14. There was no YouTube, like there wasn't anything like that.
No, it was AOL Instant Messenger. And all the forums weren't proper forums. They were just replies that went like that until they ended up on the other side of the screen, and you had to click on each one, and there was no pictures of anybody, and it was just like, what? This is just so impersonal and strange. So for me, it was about what is in the bookshop, and what was in the bookshop was like Wicca by Vivian Crowley, and Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner by Cunningham. Those were the books that I picked up and read, and so I'm there trying to call the quarters and stuff and connect with the elements and things like that. Actually, that's stuff that I'm going back to with way more of a sense of meaning and potency now. At the time, I was a square peg. I was trying to ram myself into a round hole. Now I'm just very much about fuck your starter pack. And if there's any newbies coming up, let's teach them that the starter pack doesn't mean shit, and that they need to connect with what works for them and what feels right for them, you know. Well done on rejecting the gay starter pack and the witchy starter pack. Congratulations.
Oh my God. Can I please have a t-shirt that says fuck your starter pack?
I seriously do want to do t-shirts, honest to God, but I wanted to make a t-shirt that says self-love is not a lavender-scented candlelit bath. But then I was like, why don't I just be really meta and have one that says self-love is not a t-shirt or something like that. But I'm definitely working on the t-shirts. Fuck your starter pack is coming in a number of different colours with different shit on. Fuck your witchy starter pack. Fuck your gay starter pack. Yeah, defo. It's all coming. It's all in the pipeline, babe.
Oh, my face hurts so bad. Molly, before we end this call, Molly, did you have any questions for anybody?
I'm just interested to know, for all of you, actually, the talking about, sort of the deprogramming, the deconditioning, and talking about the starter packs, because I'm sure that you guys also get a fair amount of emails from people saying, I'm new to the craft, what do I do? What do I read? What am I supposed to do? And for me, I know I actually don't have a recollection of those things, because when I was started, I was young enough, I didn't have any money. I went to the library because I was 11 and 12. So no, I can't tell you what I read almost 15 years ago, but so I tell people to just make things up, to try to make things up. And I was just curious, coming from what sounds like sort of an oppressive religious structure that you're brought up in. Do you ever find yourself incorporating elements of that into your practice to try to legitimize it to yourself? Is it still there, or do you just push it outright, or is it so much a part of you that you still find it kind of percolating? I'm really interested to know that.
I do, which is weird because I'm very connected with my family. I loved Jesus growing up. I talked to Jesus all the time, and he talked back to me. My mom thought I would be a missionary. And it took me a long time to kind of be like coming back around to that energy, but I think of it in a very, 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 very different way. I worked with the same spirit guide forever. I started with channeling in my mid-20s, and I don't know if you guys have this experience, but it has a very specific energy to it. I know that that's what it is, and I can call it in like this, and I work with it all the time. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I asked it to tell me its name, and it, through a turn of events, told me its name was Pisces. And I was like, Pisces? That's so weird, because we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Why would I be working with Pisces? And then I started thinking about, in Christianity, like, we all had the bumper sticker with the fish on it to let everybody know we are Christian. And fish symbolism that used to be a secret symbol when Christians were persecuted, that would let other Christians know this is a safe place. So I was like, okay, I guess I've been talking to Jesus this whole time. I call it Pisces. I don't know if it's my higher self or what it is that I'm working with. But so in that way, yes, I do still play in that park, but it's very different than it used to be.
Well,
That's awesome.
Oh, go ahead, Molly. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go.
I definitely use. I think my spiritual practice is just a evolvement of my Catholic. I think Catholics, sorry if I offend anybody, are like the biggest closeted witches ever. There's so much ritual to the Catholic faith that I have wonderful memories of going in with my grandma and sitting in this huge altar of just candles and taking this big old incense stick and lighting the incense with the candle and living there and sitting there and meditating and, you know, saying these mantras and stuff. And I'll like open my eye and see what my grandma was doing, and she'll be playing with the rosary, and I'm like, oh yeah, me too. Like, it was just like one of those things that connected me to the childhood, and now ritual for me is just that second nature. The one thing that I didn't take much from my Christian upbringing, because it was mostly we were Christian because my mom was going through her spiritual journey, so we went through 10 different churches, and each one said something completely different. So that's when my ideas started to be like, well, Christianity doesn't make sense. It's not consistent. And so I need consistency in my life, which then I ended up falling into the starter packet for a witch. But I take more from my Catholic upbringing, especially from my Mexican culture, like Mexican candles, and those are just amazing to me. I love that. So I love bringing that culture of what I remember and just making it a little bit more witchy and making it a little bit more divinely, uniquely tailored for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. I've not been raised religious, but I come from an Irish Catholic background on my father's side. My nana, my great aunts, my aunties, all devout Catholic. My nana's house was full of statuettes of Mary and Jesus as that kind of clean-cut Aryan hippie boy. And I was fascinated by Mass and always wanted to go to church with Nana. I'd always wake up extra early to go on a Sunday. And even though my parents didn't raise me religious, and my dad was like an all-out atheist, and my mum was like, I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of like New Age, but I love Jesus, but like as an ascended master. So it was just all like, it was a little bit like, babe, just do what you feel, you know, connection to God is personal. And even my great aunt, who was hugely Catholic, I used to ask her to talk to me about her religion, and she always used to say, it's so personal. There's no way that I can tell you what is up. You have to go find it for yourself. And this is a woman with an oil painting of Pope John Paul II on her living room wall. So it was very like, back off the kids. Don't tell the kids what to believe. It's not cool. So I'm very fortunate in that way, but when I was young and I was going to Mass all the time and stuff, convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt I would not be a witch now if it hadn't have been for those experiences. When you are 6 and 7 years old and you see grown men genuflecting in front of a woman, that is very potent, and the incense and the lighting the candles and dedicating the candles to stuff and the rosaries and just it's got a very ritualistic flavor to it. I thought it was beautiful. The whole shebang was just wicked. And I went through an experience when I was 14, which I may talk about in a video at some point, but I went through an experience which was deeply traumatizing to me, which ripped me away from that love of Catholicism and threw me into a feeling that it was dark and it was fucked up, which actually in a lot of ways it is. There's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of abuse in the church, and it started to pull me away from that affectionate feeling that I had for it. And then when I had a mental health breakdown at the age of 19, Mary came to me, and she's come to me ever since. And I really feel like one way that I have taken back that love of it was to reconnect with her in my early to mid 20s. And a lot of people have messaged underneath videos that I've made of my altars and stuff where they've said, why do you have Mary on your altar? I did not expect that. Like, what is going on with that? And the only thing that I can possibly say is that once you pick up the phone to her, and it happens for most people in childhood, she will not let you hang up. The power is real. It is potent, and I can't talk about her for too long without crying. So for me, that's how I took it back, and it came with a lot of rosary collection, and which never really stopped. But yeah, I incorporate it a lot now, and unabashedly so, and I'm glad that I managed to get that back, but like Erick said, take it through my own lens kind of thing.
You just reminded me, I pulled the Four of Swords the other day. In this particular deck, the Tarot Illuminati, you have the soldier laying down with the 3 swords on the wall, and then the one at his sides. There's a stained glass window with Mary looking over him. And when I pulled the card that day, that's all I could focus on in the picture, was that, like, he's laying there, like, receiving all of this, like, loving, healing, like, mother energy. And the card, like, took on a whole new life for me. And what you just said was, like, giving me chills, because you just verbalized what I was, like, feeling when I was staring at that card yesterday, I think it was, just recently.
It's amazing. That's awesome. I will look up that card straight away. Tarot Illuminati's really been tapping me on the shoulder, and I'm like, no, I'm not spending any more money till the summer. Get off me, get off me. And it's like, you will spend money on me, bitch. Oh, you will spend money on me. So it's annoying, but it'll happen. But that's awesome, and that will give it a whole new meaning. And anywhere where she shows up, it's actually an indescribable mother energy, and that's what does it for people. I actually believe that a lot of Catholics in the last 25, 30 years, since all of this dialogue has opened up about what exactly is going on behind closed doors and how insidious it really is, I truly, truly believe that it's Mary that people are connecting to, actually. And I believe that there is a huge thread of what they call, like, Mariology, the study and the worship and the reverence and the love for her. You know, my Nana was really Mary-centric. It wasn't that the rest of the doctrine didn't mean anything to her, but when you're Irish Catholic, you're all about that matriarchal family setup and the role of the mother and that kind of thing. And Mary will just always, always come to you in your lowest possible points, and it is like a crazy hug from the depths of cosmos. It's so epic. It's just gorgeous. I love it. I'm going to check that card out after we wrap this up and just look at it and go, yes, Four of Swords from the Illuminati Tarot.
Oh, that is awesome. And I agree. I'm probably just as addicted to that deck as Joanna. I absolutely use it for everything. Tarot Illuminati is my favorite. I can't find one I don't want to replace it. I think that's the thing. I don't want to replace it. I'll replace it with another one, just like it, in case it gets damaged.
Molly uses it as well, doesn't she? I've seen it on her altar. Do you use it, babe?
I do, and it's actually it's my favorite deck. I had previous decks before that, and for a long time I thought I was just crap at tarot. Like, I just couldn't get in. I couldn't get in there, and I would memorize, but I feel like I would do the spreads and include it in ritual, and it just wasn't there. And so I just thought, well, I'm just shit at tarot, and this just isn't meant for me. And there's a lot of imagery and elements to the Tarot Illuminati that were like, oh, get out of my brain, get out of my brain. And they felt there was a holiness about them for me. There's also an element for me. I've been deeply interested in Renaissance history, even from childhood on. So there was also sort of this weird, like, being sucked back kind of into my childhood and the things that really turned me on and got my imagination going. So I actually gifted all of my other decks to friends who are interested in learning tarot or hadn't had a deck yet, and it's actually the only tarot deck that I own right now.
It's an interesting deck because I've squawked on about it a lot, and people will buy it, and then they're like so disappointed.
What? How?
Oh, and I'm like, I guess this is not for everyone, but for me, it's so cinematic. I've always been able to imagine the, like, I don't know, it keeps moving beyond the image because I love movies as much as I love books, and I think it taps into that. It's got a very Game of Thrones feel for people that love that. But it just feels like the character's just going to continue on. Like, you can just, it's not so flat. It's not so, like, 2D, and that's
rich.
Very, really very.
I agree, because, like, there's, like, you know, like in the movie The Craft where she's reading a book and there's an image and it starts moving. That's how that deck is for me. Like, I'll watch it and I could feel, like, let's say, like, the Princess of Wands, I feel her hair moving in the heat of that land, and that's why I'm just addicted. And I get it, because I have referred to other people, they're all like, this deck is shit. And I was like, no, don't say that, it's amazing, I love it. It's like, no, babe, it's shit. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Go get the apocalyptic one if you want.
Yeah, and actually for me, I think the way it was the most helpful is truthfully the way that I work with tarot for myself, because I'm not, I don't offer readings as a service. I don't, you know, the tarot is for me in my practice, and a majority of what I use it for is doing one-card draws for path working. And with just the level of detail and how lush everything is, and that just the space goes on and on and on, it's easy, just like, whoop, get in, wander around there forever, not want to come back. Yeah, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Highly recommend it.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions for this lovely panel here? No?
I'm good. I don't want to interrogate people too much, because I could do this till 10 o'clock in the evening. I really could. But yeah, no, I think I'm gonna back off, or we will be here all night.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that as we're done. We're just gonna end it and then go back to our witchy lives. No, I appreciate you guys so much for taking your time and joining me. And everyone that is viewing this, thank you so much, and who's going to view it later. I appreciate you all. You guys have done an amazing impact in my spiritual practice in its own way. So thank you. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you. I felt the same way about you all. It's sad that we couldn't see Molly's face for a lot of it. Well, I can't.
Oh,
anyway.
no. Oh, no.
I know, so sad. I did say before we started, I was like, no, people are not going to be able to see, like, the exotic rare bird that is Molly. Like, that's what everyone's tuning in for. That's what I'm here.
We need a Molly Roberts tarot, like with the different, you know, like each shoot, different color hair.
Yeah, how screwed up would it be? How bad would it be if there was a Kellyanne Maddox tarot now?
Oh, it'd be so great.
Oh no, her hair is different now. We need a whole new one. Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I'm glad to hear see Molly. But honestly, you three have been a huge influence on me, and love you all three of you to pieces. I'm so thrilled that we could do this. I feel very, very lucky.
Me too.
I have to.
Everybody on Facebook too, because I know people were getting excited when I posted this morning. I was like, I feel the same way.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast, but you're more than welcome to linger a little bit afterwards.
Okay.
So thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Blessed be.